If you do want a wonderful Easter, Trinidad and Tobago is the best place to enjoy it, but we need to make sure that you do so safely. This morning, I want to welcome Road Safety Coordinator, Sgt Brent Batson of the TTPS, who joins us this morning to discuss road safety, especially around Easter time. Good morning to you, Sergeant.
Morning. Thanks for having us.
Not a problem. How are you doing this morning?
Good, fair to find.
Yeah.
So far, we welcome any opportunity to try and, spread the message of road safety and remind Trinidad and Tobago the importance, being road traffic rules. So thanks.
How important is it? We've been seeing lots of accidents, lots of deaths, unfortunately, happening on the roads. Has there been an increase? Has there been more than usual? Or?
Sure. Yeah, definitely. For so far, going into the first quarter of 2022, so far for date, we've had a increase of 32%.
Wow.
In road traffic deaths.
That's compared to the same period last year.
Same period last year.
But we were kind of locked down. So now we kind of...
Well, you see, that's my problem, right? Yes, we were kind of locked down. But so I don't understand where people are trying to say, well, so because you open up, what does that mean? You become risk averse?
No, we have more people driving.
No, and I hear you on that. But the way we drive, you see, there's our concern. You can have more people driving, that's great. But the way in which we use the roads cannot be at the expense of either your safety or other people's own.
Agreed.
And we're finding that there's an element of recklessness kind of popping up since more reopening, and of course even in late night crashes where persons are taking unnecessary risk on the roads.
Can you give me an example of some of those unnecessary risks?
Well, a good example is dangerous overtaking.
Right.
They'll be overtaking wrong corners, and then we have to respond. You remember, our job as public safety is risk reduction and harm reduction. So when we see persons engaging in this type of behavior, whether overtaking the crest of hills, people, as you just saw in that video, breaching a clear red light, it's very disturbing because we now have to respond to incidents what's so highly preventable. If somebody just, took their time, if somebody even gave right of way instead of proceeding straight ahead. So we've also noticed that people, especially on the highways, at 100 kilometers an hour, they're driving too close. So when there's one small little accident, it ends up being 5 or 6. Now imagine peak hour on the northbound. That 5-car accident has backed up the highway by another 3 hours. 3 hours. Worse yet, like I said, the persons that want to stop and observe for some reason. And it's becoming challenging to the resources because we have our jobs to do as well. So when you sometimes even the stations are burdened by these trivial reports that come in that are so preventable. A person just took their time.
So it's important that we, as motorists on the road, we have a responsibility to take our time to observe the laws that are already in place and to just be responsible. And that should curb a whole big chunk of the accidents that we're seeing.
Oh, definitely. When we when the especially highway patrol and traffic section speed teams are outside there, it's amazing when people are getting tickets for driving 120, 130, and they say no. Well, I could have sworn I was driving 100. So persons.
So then you have to give them a second ticket for having a broken speedometer.
Well, it's not. You see, it doesn't mean it's broke. They're not checking it.
They're not checking.
And that's why I always tell people, every so often you want to, because these speed limits on the roadways, and I want to remind persons that when, for example, they're doing speed enforcement on the main roads, if you're driving 80 in that 50 zone, that's a $3,000 ticket.
Wow. And
6 points. So it's and again, because the risk that you're posing to other road users it is unacceptable. So we're out there to try and again enforce behaviors that promote public safety.
Sergeant, how have people been responding to this whole new point system? When you give them tickets, yes, there's the financial charge, but there's also the point system that we now have in place. How have motorists been responding to that?
Well, I think clearly, I think we need to do more.
We being the TTPS?
Well, I think the TTPS and the states, ourselves, Ministry of Works and Transport, because we find there's a big gap in persons realizing the ramifications and how quickly that 10-point threshold can be met with just two fixed penalty notices, right? Good example, today you decide to use the bus route without a bus route pass because the traffic was too thick. and you got a $2,000 ticket plus, which was 6 points.
Right.
And then tomorrow, you pulled out from the gas station, and you didn't put your seatbelt on, and then you drove into the roadblock, and you're now reaching for it. Well, it's too late. Now you drove onto the road now without the seatbelt, and that's 4 points. You just hit the 10-point threshold within a week. So then you get a letter for disqualification from the licensing authority. So the response, and this is what the state is trying to tell drivers, there's a big responsibility attached to having that driver's permit. And it's a privilege to have it. And it's something that will be revoked because you're breaching the conditions of that driver's permit when you engage in unsafe road practices.
Okay, tell me how does the TTPS plan to continue battling this situation? Because it seems to be a battle. You have people who just simply not paying attention to the rules of the road. They're simply just not listening. They're not being responsible for themselves and for the other people that are driving on the road as well. How is the TTPS battling this?
I'm glad you put it that way, because you're saying battling, and there's only so much tickets we could write.
Right.
The goal cannot be to ticket our way into coercing the correct behavior. The goal has to, you know, when people see these videos, and you know, when I saw that volunteer crash and the trauma attached to that girl trying to deal with
the situation,
with that situation, that's what we aim to prevent. Just put on your seatbelt. You know, just obey those speed limits. It's Easter, and we want everybody to have a good time. But like I said, you have to be responsible. We know persons are there's multiple events planned for this Easter weekend.
Certainly.
All right, and we're grateful for those of you who told us where your locations are and stuff like that, because we'll be there.
Right.
You know, and so just do it responsibly. The Commissioner of Police, Deputy Commissioner of Police Operations, as well as the Senior Superintendent Traffic High Patrol Branch, more or less are going to spread a blanket across the Twin Island state. And I want to emphasize to Trinidadians who are venturing across the Tobago for Easter, do not think for 1 second we're not across there ready for you all. They're deploying a special traffic enforcement team just to deal with that issue across there in Tobago. So if you think you're going to be drinking up a whole set of alcohol and then driving on Shervan Road, we'll be there. So we want to warn everybody, please enjoy your weekend, but let's do it responsibly.
So the TTPS plans to ramp up patrols, ramp up roadblocks, ramp up everything for the weekend, for the whole weekend. You say put in a blanket, huh?
It's a blanket.
Is it going to be like that day of total policing?
No. When we say blanket, it's a blanket of coordinated still,
okay,
but at the same time, specific exercises. Remember, when we're looking at whether we're DUI or anti-crime, all of it is multifaceted once we commence the operations. And a lot of it through Commissioner Jacob is more intelligence driven, yeah? So when we are, for example, like I mentioned, advertised fetes, and we already know that there's certain categories of people attending these fetes, then officers will be present.
At the fete or outside the fete?
Well, either at or outside.
Right.
The thing about it, once you venture onto the public road now you're going into the area where we have that full force of the law. I also want to mention though, since you're giving me the opportunity, that when persons go out there, we always say you're going to easily spoil the weekend by starting it off on the wrong foot to use any road. First thing we're asking persons to do is start with document check. This is a long weekend. If your insurance is expiring over the weekend, well, you might have, curtailed.
Then you ought not to be driving.
Well, this is what's confusing. And then Trinbagonians have a fetish of having all expired insurance in their glove compartment. So when we stop them, they're going through 15.
Sift through all.
You have to so we have to pull it to the side. You're keeping back everybody. So please take the opportunity now. Check your expiry date. Check that you have the correct insurance and have it ready, because it's not a matter of if, it is when you will be engaged on that roadway. So check your documents. The next thing I want you to check is your vehicle. Make sure it's safe for the roadways. If we're going out there, there'll be joint exercises. Licensing will also be there. If you have a defective tire, that ticket's $1,000. We rather you spend that money on replacing your tires.
Yeah.
So make sure your vehicle's in safe working order. Make sure your lights, everything, wipers, good to go, so that when you meet us, you know it's roadworthy. We are happy to see that you're complying with the road safety rules. And last but not least is your driver check, which is you. Make sure you have your seatbelts on, your passengers have their seatbelts on. When we look at the ticketing stats coming in, two of the top most ticketed offenses right now: driver not wearing a seatbelt still after all this education that we give, and passenger. So I want to use this opportunity, to remind all drivers that under the law, you are responsible for ensuring that front seat passenger is wearing their seatbelt.
And that part I wanted to clarify, is it only front seat passengers?
Front seat. We don't have rear seat occupant seatbelt laws. However, I mean, something we support. I always say the same crash force given to the front seat will apply to the rear. So if the vehicle is equipped with rear seat belts, please use them.
Sergeant Batson, I want to thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Sure.
There's a lady who called in while we've been talking. She called in upstairs and she said, and I don't want to misquote, let me read it exactly what she said. She said that you cannot leave the police service because you are one of the best, very articulate, very intelligent, and she appreciates every time that you come to share information.
Okay.
So I know oftentimes we tend to bash the police very publicly and we don't often give commendation. So I want to extend commendation to you and by extension the TTPS for the work that you guys have been doing, the positive reinforcement, because we do need it. We do need to be encouraged sometimes to do the right thing. And thank you so much for joining us this morning to encourage the right thing.
All right, thanks for having us.
Not a problem at all. Do enjoy the rest of the day. Ladies and gentlemen, Sgt Brent Batson, Road Safety Coordinator at the TTPS, just reminding us to be safe this weekend, be smart this weekend, be considerate this weekend, and continuing after this weekend as well, because we want to make sure that you can drive safely, that you can live to see another day. We take a quick break and come back with more on the Now Morning Show. Stay tuned.